Hello, hello. Hey, ladies. Welcome,
Hey.
everybody. Welcome to the Women Let's Talk About It corner. We are here. My name is Crystal Almeida, CEO and founder of the Mom Link. Down below, I think we're all seeing the same screen. Miss Mary Massey.
Woo.
The other corner, Camille Jones, up with us today on this Women Let's Talk About It corner is teacher Mellonie Warren. We are all a part of the Mom Link tribe, a community, a sisterhood of women supporting women in business. And today we are talking all things money mindset. And it's like raw talk, like real talk. Let's talk about why women are not making more money. And what's kind of in our way, holding us back, and what are some things that each of you are applying and making sure that we're not being held back by our money mindset. So let's jump into this conversation. Ladies, where do we start with like what's holding women back from making more money in entrepreneurship?
Oh, that's a.
Do we rip the Band-Aid off or do we go slow?
You just ripped the Band-Aid off. It's so interesting because I just got off a call. I literally just got off right before a call with somebody who wants to do great things and has had a business and is in limbo right now, trying to figure out like where she should go next. And then when we talked about the fee that I would charge for my time, for a proper strategy, it was like, oh, and I think that a lot of the times we get so scared because it's happened to me too. Like that fear sets in of, okay, am I going to go and invest in something that maybe is not going to work for me, or is it going to work for me? What am I fearful about here? So there's just so much that goes into that. And I think the number one thing is that fear that we experience is like, oh man, here we go again. So I have gone through that myself, and I have been afraid and gone and invested and gotten, like falling flat on my face and nothing ever came out of it. But a lot of that too is just that fear of moving, depending on where we're going with that, right? So I would say fear is the number one thing.
I agree with you. It's the fear of the unknown and the fear of, am I worth it in the end? Because we think of, oh, okay, I'm going to invest in something to make myself better. We desire that. We want that. And then when it comes time to actually do it, it's just like, well, but if I do that, then what about all these other things that I have that needs to be taken care of? If I put it all on myself, can those things be done without it? But not knowing that we're worth it too. We're worth it. We desire more, we want more, but we don't want to do the more to get to that point. That's going to lead us, right? Which also triggers in our mindset. That's when we have to do some really deep inner search. What was I taught at an early age, and what did I see where now it's on me, because now I can't see myself in that arena. I can't see myself, being wealthy, being prosperous. Either that could be something that was taught, what you were seen and experienced. Maybe you tried and you fail, or you felt but you failed. This is one thing I always say: you never fail unless you stop. It's when you like, okay, I'm not. This is it. I'm done. That's when failure steps in, because then you never learned anything from it, right? Because you're not being proactive, you're being reactive in, I'm not going to do anything thereafter, So it's really diving deep. And that's something that I've had to go through, and it is definitely, it's a journey, but it's a journey that does not stop, because there are triggers as well that can also limit, you may step forward, but then something can happen where you're just like, I don't know. I don't think I can. I don't think I'm worthy of it. Or it's just like, wow, can I spend that? Mm-hmm. You spend it already. When you think about it unconsciously, we spend it on things that don't give us any value, right? But we don't want to spend it on something as far as our education in helping us to be better versions of ourselves, because we don't see the value in it. So how can we help ourselves to see the value in those things?
Yeah. And, I love that you brought about the value of it, because I find a lot of us, it's obscured value of us feeling like as if we have to keep up with the Joneses. And if we don't, we are letting everybody down. So why even bother? Because we have that stigma of you know, if we say we could do it all, you know, I'll be bad all by myself, I'm independent, and all that kind of stuff that we constantly are being inundated with when you are that amazing woman doing other things, you know, when you really think about it, we're actually putting more loads on our back when we say these
That point.
things. So that because I'm not even gonna say if, when that failure does happen, because we do always encounter some form of chaos or it's not even destruction. I call it something of a rewind, that maybe we need to refocus or revisit something. Instead, we convert that into a failure. And then we have those limited beliefs of saying, oh, shoot, everything that I said that I was showing off, now I'm actually failing. You know what? To avoid all of that, I'm just going to do nothing. I'm going to stay in my lane. And there's so many times that we as women it's like a subliminal competition that's not really against each other. It's against the stigma of us having it all, being it all, and doing it all, if that makes sense. That's what I've seen.
Oh my goodness, that's like a big Band-Aid that needs to be ripped off. Camille, you and I just talked about this too privately, and we talked about like, okay, so fear is number one, but you know what the biggest fear with money is? Talking about it and being honest about it, and actually talking about how much money you make, or talking about, and you know, people say all the time, and I see it in entrepreneurship, and everybody's like, oh wow, like this community's blowing up and this community's blowing up, and I'm like, do you know, people feel the same about the MomLink community. Everybody, what they perceive is not the actual necessarily reality. And then when you see this, you want to also pretend to live that as well, because you think it will bring you more money, but it's actually what's holding you back from making money when you're pretending to already be successful. And it's okay to say, like, why is there shame in saying, I had a program and I sold it to 3 people? And people don't want to say, I sold my program to 3 people, only 3 people bought my program or my membership or whatever it is, my boot camp, whatever, because you're embarrassed to say, well, I didn't make that much money, my business is not successful. But those 3 people, if you actually utilize and leverage that, you can turn those 3 into 6 or to 9 or to continue, right? By just having an authentic journey. The other Band-Aid I want to rip off, and this is what it led me into, and Camille, you were describing it, I was like, oh my gosh, the fear of wanting to actually be real with yourself and your numbers, not looking at your bank account, not knowing your profit margins, not knowing on a 30-day business cycle what's coming in, what's coming out, being too afraid. And people do this personally. Nobody wants to look at their bank account. Nobody wants to actually pull a spreadsheet from their account and actually see how much money they spent on junk food, how much money they spent on alcohol, how much money they spent on like clothing or whatever, you know, frivolous things, on, you know, where they can manage their money better. So anyways, I want to rip the Band-Aid off of people. There's such a taboo to talk about money that it's actually what's holding people back from making money and talking about it in a real raw way.
Yeah. You know, I love when I do this with my clients, when I say, okay, for a week, I want you just to track and see what you're spending your money on. And then when they meet with me, they're just like, I cannot believe how much I spent on, and I talk about this as a just, right? Because we have this mindset, well, it's just $1 or it's just $5, but those just add up, right? And so when they get to realize it, just the other day, this past Monday, I was meeting with one, and I went through the whole budget. He gave me, I mean, when I said from the A to Z, all of his accounts and what have you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why aren't you just cooking? Just cook a meal. You're spending $500 a month on eating out. What are we doing? He was like, Coach, I was so scared. I know you were going to come to me. And I was just like, no, listen, I want you just to be mindful. I'm not saying for you not to enjoy your life. That's not the thing. But you can still enjoy your life and do the other things that you want to do, because now you can't do those things because it's going in your gut, first of all. Okay? It's going in your gut. So you cannot travel. You cannot say, he's like, I want to be able to retire my wife. And I was like, you actually can, but there's just some shifting that needs to be done, right? Which goes back to, what is the thing that brings us value? So that was something that was bringing value was just like, oh, if we can go out to eat, then we can, enjoy life. And it's like, that's all fine and dandy, but we have to shift now. You have to shift your perspective on life. So like you said, knowing your numbers, and it is okay when you get to realize what those little things that you're spending money on, and how it just can just significantly just change your mindset on what you're trying to do. Because a lot of the time, and we talked about this too, we wait for our tax professor, we wait for our accountant to do all these things, but we have to know it just as well as the accountant, so we can be more proactive in how we respond in our money, right, and how we do things. So
Mellonie, can I ask you an added layer question? So in the beginning, I was passing the mic to Mary for her to introduce herself. So it totally didn't flow well. So go ahead and introduce yourself with your official titles. Ladies, let's all do that. But I have a specific question before you go ahead and introduce yourself. And this is why Mellonie's with us today, because she's an expert guest here talking with us. And my question for you is, do you feel like, okay, so we all know and Camille and Mary in the wellness industry, when you know better, you do better. When you know what you're intaking for your health, your nutrition, then you may make different choices. So I want to ask you that same question when it comes to money and money mindset. Does your subconscious, just by knowing where your every dollar is going every month, so if you're spending $500 on groceries, but you really like to travel, do you feel like your subconscious psyche plays a role in automatically shifting how you spend money because you know the actual numbers? And because you get more enjoyment out of travel, maybe you'll cut down on this, but it's not like do you think that there's any type of like correlation there?
Oh, there is, significantly. It's absolutely significant, because when you realize what you're spending and how much you're actually spending on, as we're talking about food, and you realize, oh my gosh, so now I can understand why I'm not able to save, why I'm not able to invest as much, or we have the mindset too already, that trigger, I can't afford to. But in actuality, you can afford to. It's just some shifting that needs to be done, because a lot of times, once you actually know your numbers, and I had to do this myself. I'm not talking about this like, oh, something. I've had it done it myself. And when it actually shifted, my mind is just like, oh, okay. So if I do this, now I'm able to really get to do the things that I want to do. What's on my vision board, right? You start at where you are. So not so much saying that, okay, I need to go and make extra money. You probably do. But what are you doing with what you have now? Because if you don't work with what you have now, you're going to do the same thing when you get more, right? So you have to start with where you are. And so when that shifting comes, when they come to the realization, okay, I can start with what I have now, right? With that little can now become much. But you have to first make that shifting and actually see and put things in place. And it's just like this whole entrepreneurship journey, right? Entrepreneurship journey is a faith walk. The life that we live, it's a faith walk. So in order for us to live this way, we have to walk it out. There's something that we have to be done in order to make these shifting in our lives, because now we're making a conscious effort and decision on how we are showing up in our money, and understand that money is a tool. But what ends up happening is that money ends up becoming not a tool. It becomes that, what's the word I'm looking for? That then it's innate object. That's not really so much, that we don't realize that we have a power. It controls you, right? It controls you instead of you controlling it.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you get to realize, oh, I can control this, not anybody else, right? Not trying to impress anybody. I can control it. Then you have this empowerment. Just is like, oh, okay. Because how you do with your personal is how you're going to do in your business.
Yeah. And, I also wanted to say, when it comes to that too, is I find that when in my past life, if anybody didn't know this, you'll know now, I was a financial planner, financial advisor. And that's actually the job that I walked out of in 2021 to become a wellness designer. And I always did a whole thing on money sense, and because I always was into wellness, and I always used to say especially as women, is that our finances is also a part of our wellness. Because a lot of times when we don't have our finance in order, that's when we become subliminally stressed. We stop. The biggest thing is we will stop investing in ourselves, our personal care. Because us as women, what we'll do is if we make $1, especially if we have children or even a significant other or somebody that we're caring for, instead of us even thinking about ourselves, we'll think about that dollar. Oh, that's the scarcity mindset, is I have to give it to this person or do something with that because this is my role as in their life. So I used to say with a lot of us women is that we need to understand how money works with us and through us, and also that when we spend it on, well, not even spend it, when we invest it in ourselves, whether it be in a coach in terms of a financial coaching, or your wellness in terms of self-care, or anything that is exclusive to you, and you're seeing that value, for myself at least, it brings up a lot of clarity into where I want to even grow my money even more, because now I'm seeing the value with for because I'm using it on my, and it's not, it sounds selfish, but it's actually selfless. And that's what I've noticed a lot of when people come, when it comes to money, and women will spend it out on everywhere else, thinking that we're being, Mother Teresa, servicing others so much. And then when we don't do it to ourselves, we don't have the money anymore. That makes sense. Because I find that a lot of times with us women, especially I used to do a whole bunch of financial plans for it. And I always noticed they'd be paying out this, paying. And in the bottom, it was them. And when you think about it subconsciously, or not subconsciously, mentally, when you see all of what you're working for always going out the door, always going out the door, always going out the door, not having a firm foundation on where, as you all said, what's going in and out of your business, you're going to be like, I have no money. It's crazy how much when we don't put into ourselves and we keep think that we're giving out to others, that we're doing ourselves a service, how much we're doing a disservice to our even our subconscious mind and how we react and stuff with money. So I just want to leave that.
That's good. That's powerful. One of the things that you just said was the education. We don't educate ourselves about money because we know that, first of all, the financial service industry is a male dominant industry, right? And so we just think that, oh, that's just something that's, too far fetched. Can't understand the numbers. Or we hear the other one, well, I hate math. So what's the biggest? So I can't do it. But once you educate yourself and when you realize how simple some of these concepts is and what you can do, that's when the shifting becomes better. Right now, you're able to understand the proper use of money management and how to be able to.
But Coach Mellonie, I have a question for you though, because I love that, but I also believe that we need to put a value to the money, not just on the denomination of that money. Like we have a care to our, when we have that kind of interest or a purpose behind it, it will drive us more to go through it. And again, just as I said, there's a lot of us that are living such a mundane life with our money. We're spending it over here with the activities, over there with the clothes and the groceries and all these kind of stuff that we're seeing money, the value of money is, oh, I guess it's just there for me to pay my bills. But if we see what I find that, again, it goes that mindset shift. I don't know. I want to ask you about that. What do you think as from your practices? Do you do some forms of mindset training or shifting, I should say, rather, with your clients as you're building up their portfolios? Or are you just strictly talking about that budget? Because I'm finding nowadays that mindset shift needs to really take place before what you're saying on paper is going to even make sense to them, because they need to attach a value. Do you know?
I agree. One of the things that I do with my coaching program is dealing with the mindset. Because they can get all the information, we can do all the budget, but guess what? They're going to go right back. So I have to address what is that limiting that belief. What was your past experience as it relates to money? What did you see growing up in your family? What is that? What is the value that you saw it as? Or did you think of that, oh, that's just only for a select few? I can't see myself being rich. I can't see myself having a wealthy, prosperous life because I've never seen it, or there was no value that was taught on it. And like for myself, coming from a Caribbean family, both of my parents are Jamaican, right? And they know how to work hard, right? We know the stigma of Jamaica. Oh, you're Jamaican, all right, you have a lot of jobs. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And so one of the things that I saw growing up was entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship was a big thing in my family because of my grandparents. My grandparents in the country had their businesses, right? And so my father more so had his businesses, and a couple of his brothers always had their businesses. But one thing they still didn't get taught was what to do with the what to do with the money. And instant prime example. So my father had some he was electrical contractor, and he was making a whole lot of money, and my mother would make deposits, and the teller would always say to my mom, you know what, your husband needs to sit with one of the bank representative. Okay, all right, to sit with one of the bank representatives because
Yeah.
he has all this money in the savings, but it's not doing anything. And so my mom will go and say, listen, the lady said for you to go and meet with one of the investment. And he was just like, why? She's trying to take my
Yeah.
she's trying to take my money. Why is it always bothering her? It's my money. And she's just like, I don't think that's the point. She's just seeing that there's you have this money. It's not working for you. You're working for it, but it's not working for you. And so it took forever and a day. He still never did it, by the way. He still never did, because he never understood the value, because it was never taught, right? And
Yeah.
so it wasn't until now my mother tells me that story, and I'm like, and I share her things now and what I am, and she's just like, that's what the lady was trying to say. He's like, you're working for your money, but the tool that you have is not working for you. So you're going to always be in a place of, well, I've got to do something. I've got to do something. I've got to do something. Right. And so we have to get into that point of addressing that. So that's why I really try and work with I work with my clients on, we have to address the underlying issue here of why you just see
Mhm.
money as, okay, I'm going to buy something, instead of looking at, I can take this and multiply it, right? And
Mhm.
which now addresses the limiting belief, because now we can know how to go forth, instead of, we're going to do a budget, I'm going to set up a game plan, and the next couple months we're going to be back at the same spot.
Mhm. And I love that. I love that you talked about the value, because I feel like in everything that we do, when we attach a value
Mm-hmm.
purpose behind it, it does make the the work, you makes you more
Right.
dedicated to that work when we have the value attached to it. So I feel like with us, with women, again, we put the value of money in so many different areas, or we're also raised to not speak about it, or know our role, or even, keep it. There's just so many
Mm-hmm.
layers. And I want to say, well, Crystal and Mary, because we all have
Right.
diverse backgrounds, and I know also too. How about with you all? It's a very cultural thing in my home, like that. The men are the ones that do everything with the money. Even if the woman has the money, that's just for the kids. I don't. That's in my culture. How about with
I'm
Crystal
going to pass
and
it to Mary.
or
All I'm going to
Mary?
say is, oh my gosh, this is, I think, not just culturally, historically, gender based, situation. Historically, we have been conditioned where, the patriarch is the person who is managing money, making decisions on the money. And so, my thoughts on this. I'm all about women and financial independence. I think it's extremely important, especially as our future generation depends on moms and women to demonstrate these skills and these ability to be financially independent and manage your own money and have involvement in family, decision, financial making powers, be financially literate. I could go on and on. So I think not only culturally do we see this, but historically, around the world, it's always been the case.
Mhm.
Facts.
Yeah, for me, I've known a lot of single moms that had no choice but to step into that role and really learn because, yeah, it's patriarchal, I guess you can say, right? If you're in that environment, but a lot of women are not, and more women are actually breaking away from that. So for me, it's always been important to kind of like have my own thing and have my husband have his own thing. And then we have a joint account. So, but in doing that too, and I think we had that conversation last week, is like, I was not very disciplined to begin with my finances because I wasn't taught properly. And here in the U.S., you get hit with that credit card right away. Like I remember being in college, they don't do that anymore. But I'm going back into the '90s here, where I would always see like every day there was like a Visa or Mastercard application or whatever. And it's very easy to fall into those traps and get into debt very early on. And a lot of the times, like for us, we actually had a major issue with that, and it took us a long time to get out of that. But it's all in the education, right? In understanding your budget. And what you were talking about earlier was making that decision when you're like, okay, I need to do this thing, so I'm not going to do this thing. I'm not a big shopper. I used to be. I used to frivolously spend every Friday. I was at the mall, I was making good money back in the day. And looking back, it wasn't until I had more responsibility that I had to hit the brakes on myself and be like, okay, wait a minute. So I went from always designer this, designer that to now, like, I'm always in this, I'm always at the gym. I'm not the type to carry a bag. I have expensive bags in my closet, and there they are. Maybe I should sell them. And I have done that in the past. But now I know consciously I need this money for gas. I need this money for groceries. That's what's important to me right now. And if I have some money left over to invest in a program or whatever I'm doing, then there's that available. But just thinking differently because of how we were in the past. And sometimes for me, it took me a long time to get to that space. Budgeting, I remember my husband saying to me, "Oh yeah, I got you the QuickBooks or whatever." I'm like, "QuickBooks? No, I don't want to be responsible like that. I don't want to grow up because it's a lot. It takes a lot for us to be confronted with our BS and our bad habits because at the end of the day, that's what it is. And like you said, how you do things in your finances one way personally is how you're going to carry that into your business. And man, it's really painful in the beginning when you're trying to get yourself up there because our income will come up and it'll go down, and before you know it, you're like, oh man, I can't sustain this because now my income is not what it used to be. So yeah, understanding all of these things inside and out is really going to help us. So hopefully those of you who are watching are taking notes and listening and maybe understanding a little bit now. Maybe I need to sit down, set up that spreadsheet. How do I budget? And if you don't know how to do any of that, then definitely reach out because it's important to start now so that you're not stuck. And now that the holidays are coming, watch out.
And I'm going to rip off another Band-Aid when we're talking about this, just to keep it real. Ladies, if you catch yourself saying, my husband manages my money or manages our money, and I have no idea what happens in our finances because I don't really care and it's not of interest to me, rip that Band-Aid off. It should be of interest to you. You should know about it. You should care about it. Let's rip the stigma off of also not talking about it with our kids because Mary Massey just hit on like a pain point there. Like, I wish growing up I knew what kind of money my parents generated. I wish I knew more, like in specific, I understood how much the mortgage was, how much these things were, so all of a sudden that's financial literacy. When all of a sudden we hear people talk about financial literacy, well, it's at our fingertips, and we can actually expose our children at a way younger age if we remove the stigma and taboo associated with talking about money with our kids, the same way that historically, gender wise, we as women, you have heard that statement a lot. And I'm sure there's still a lot of women who say, no, my husband takes care of that. I don't really like doing numbers. That's not my thing. No, you need to care about it, because I'll give you a really bad example. Real Housewives, Teresa Giudice, and yes, I'm going to go there. There is no, I didn't know, right? And good thing I'm not famous. She's not going to hear this, so we're okay. But it's true. That's not an excuse, right, ladies? Like to say, I didn't know where my husband was spending the money. Well, you should know. You should want to know, and you should protect yourself. You never know what could happen, right? And most importantly, if not for you, for your kids. So that's my ripping another Band-Aid off.
It's facts, though. It's facts. And there should also be no stigma of having your own accounts. I'm like Mary. It's so funny, though. My husband and I, we never really even thought about it. We just did our thing. You know what I mean? But I've also been I'm in the financial field. So I've always just, I don't know. For us, we're I don't know how to explain it, but it's not that we're separate, but we're separate, if that makes sense, other than like our mortgage. But we've always just had two separate accounts. Maybe it's because I know I'm a better money manager and he doesn't listen. I don't know.
Can we ask Mellonie? Camille, let's ask Mellonie this question, because I'm also on the same page with Camille. I want to know, what is your opinion in terms of partnerships, relationships, marriages, whatever, common laws, whatever you want to call it. So I am of the alternative. We do not pull everything together. We also have our own independence. So would you, and I think we did that because I was worried. People always say when you get married, you have two problems, kids, and you fight over kids and money, right? Like that's what you hear all the time, right? So I was like, okay, we're not going to fight about that. And the kids problem, no problem. Whatever, that I had no issue with that. But the money thing, I was like, okay, well, keep things separate so there's less fights. So would you encourage that in relationships? When I say keep things separate, let me be clear.
Yeah.
The family expenses, household incomes, all that needs to be paid in a relation or in a common law situation, get paid and dumped into one, but then everything else remainder, you manage your own like incomes and you manage your own things and where you want to spend your money. And so should it be independent? Is that a healthier money relationship and partnership? Or would you say, no, dump it all together and both of you be equally responsible?
Oh, I have an opinion on that.
Okay, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so mine is kind of like
Let's do it. Let's talk
mine is
about
like a
it.
hybrid. Okay, you know
Okay.
why? Because if you have a partner and there are times when you want to do something special, you can't have like
That's
we have our
totally
own
different.
Amazon. I manage the Amazon account, but whenever I need to do something, I'm like, oh crap, he's gonna go into the Amazon account and see what I ordered. So these little things do matter. Like if you're thinking in a positive, nice way and you're not being sneaky about your stuff, right? So in that sense, I think it's nice to have, like I said before, we both have our separate accounts and we have
Yeah.
our joint account. And I think that's a healthy way of doing things. But for people who need to be held accountable with their spending, right, it may not be so good. So I think that for me, I mean, I said this before, I almost wish that he had been a little bit more firm with me about our finances as opposed to just letting me fly and do whatever, because he's so like, I love you, whatever makes you happy, just do it.
Oh my
That's okay.
gosh.
You maxed out the
That
credit
was just the
card.
problem.
Let me
Hold
pay
on.
for it. Like that's my husband, everybody. So not so good because somebody's still coming. I
Does
know,
he have a
right?
brother?
Like seriously. So in that sense, like somebody who's not so disciplined, it's very dangerous to do that. Very dangerous. But
It
if you
is.
can get to the point where you
It
become a
is.
little bit more disciplined and you budget and everything, then it can be a healthy thing.
That's why it's important that you have conversations. And I can tell you from my experience, and as we're ripping off the band-aid, to be honest with you, I'm the one that was, yeah, I'm the money person in my finances, but we do have a joint and then there is separate. But when it comes time to talk about it, and this was a real thing, especially in the beginning, when it came to talk about it, okay, because my husband was like, okay, we're going to meet on our budget every couple of months, whatever the case may be. And so I will get very offended when he will ask and question, like, so what's going on with this one? What's going on with this one? And I'll just be like, what you mean? I've been taking care of it. What's the problem? Well, I just want to know. I was like, what is it? What is it that you need to know? I'm confused. What's going on? I mean, get very offended until I had to really kind of do some searching for myself and just like, why? Because I will feel as though you're questioning me. You don't trust me. How about you do? You just do it. You just do it. That's what I would do. You just take care of it, okay? Because I'm doing all this and all this type of thing and the whole nine yards. I was listen, and then I had to reflect on this. Is that okay? So he's doing this for the purpose of we need to be on the same page, right? We're in this marriage, we're in this relationship, we're in this unit. We know when we are on one accord, great things happen. But if you're over here doing this and doing all this type of thing, and then when we come together, it's a problem, then we're not going to achieve the things that we need to achieve together, right? And so I say, and what I would say, first of all, is that you definitely need to have a conversation with your spouse, okay, or your significant other. It is challenging, right? It is painful, but once you can just get over that hump, right? The crying, and I can tell you that the crying, the fussing, the whole carrying on, it will lead you to such great success. It really, really, I mean, I can't begin to tell you the things that we've been able to do once we got on one accord. Once we didn't get on one accord, it was like it would take so much longer. Cannot see, you cannot see any progress whatsoever. So you do have the person that is the stronger person, right? Who's okay, great, can put it together. And then you have the other one that might not be so good, but coming together, it is a priceless unit that happens. But it does take some communication. It really, really does. And it does take some tears, probably too, right? It takes a little fussing at, but once and Prime example. So I remembered when, and I always like to share, you know, my husband and myself, we experienced a foreclosure, bankruptcy, being sued, and all that. And I say that to people because life does happen and it doesn't define who
Mhm.
you are. You can recover and you can rebuild. And when you go through bankruptcy and you have student loan debt, student loan debt is not a part of bankruptcy whatsoever. So you still have this mountain that you still have to deal with. And so my husband would say to me, you know what? This student loan debt thing here, it was one amount. Now it's going up, right? Because per day, even if it's in forbearance, whatever, you're still getting charged interest per day. Okay, so now you're thinking you're getting you're getting ahead, you know, but you're not. You're paying for this for the rest of your life if you don't know how to control it. Or the other side, you can have a mortgage payment without a house. Okay. And so he will say to me, you know what? I don't understand how this is, because it was my student loan debt. I went to school, I got the grades, the whole 9 yards. He did not. So he was just like, well, this is supposed to make your life better. Why is it going to be there for the rest of your life? I don't understand it. And so we were digging into how the whole student loan debt works out. And he said, well, we're going to pay this off. And I was like, what's the big deal? I mean, everybody has student loan debt. What's the big deal? And he made such a decision, and I was just like, all right, you know what? Let's do this. And we sat down and we put a game plan together. Ladies, we were like beasts. Whatever money was coming in for everywhere. And we attacked that debt. It was over about $45,000. We paid that off, and I promise you, in 3 months. How? By God's grace. What we did, we had a plan, and we did this plan together. Laser focus. It can happen. And it happened. It happened. When people ask me, how in the world? We had a plan, and we worked the plan together.
And can I say, you asked the difficult questions. Okay, so let me just like recap something really quick. We all said, and I think we all agreed then, in terms of relationships, money mindset, money management, the healthiest, if you were to ask me, and I think everybody here is agreeing with this, is have a joint, have everything, you know, your finances, your bills getting paid, have your joint, but also have some your own account. However, having your own account doesn't mean it's a blanket statement, like you just get to hide everything under the blanket and brush it under the rug, and then independently you're both racking up credit cards. Like, that doesn't work. You can't do that. You have to have uncomfortable conversations. And Mellonie, when you were talking about this, I was like, oh my gosh, I do this in my marriage all the time. Ask flat out, like, what was your biggest expense this month? Not that I'm going to tell you could make it or you couldn't make it, but let's talk about that. Did you put something huge on your credit card this month? Are you working on paying something off personally? Like, even though it's not coming out of our joint account, if you get yourself into a problem, it then becomes a joint problem. So I need to be aware about it, right? So like when you talked about your student loan, like I have a student loan as well. I've let my husband know about it. If anything big comes upon him or me independently, it's eventually if you live together, it is your problem, whether you want to recognize that or not, right? At least in Canada, it's like that, right? Whether you're married or not, if you're living together, then it is both your problem. So I think the thing that you said about having those conversations on an active basis, even though you have your independence, I will say as a joke, like I've always said to my husband, anything under like $1,000, I'm not talking about it. I don't need to ask questions about it, but I also need to pay a blanket statement, making sure he's not making like crazy big purchases that I don't know about, right? So there's rules to the game, I guess I could say. And then the other thing, you just drove it home again. Know your numbers. Know your numbers and let them scare you. And if they don't scare you, then you're not going to do anything about it. But when you know your numbers, you can make educated decisions on what to do. So like Mellonie, I don't know what the interest rate is on student loans, but exactly that. When you don't know your numbers and you're not educated on how much interest you're paying on different things, then you're not going to make the best decision on what you should pay off first, right? So it's so important. And literally, you have to rip the Band-Aid off of knowing your numbers so good and knowing exactly where your debts are, how much interest rates you're paying, what credit cards you're using. Stop using your debit card, all kinds of things. That's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother conversation.
But anyways, yes, I love that.
I wanted to
Yeah.
add to that if I may, because this is Let's Talk About a Corner. We have about 10 more minutes, 8 minutes left. But what I love about this corner is we got to throw some wrenches into this conversations, right? Because it's life. Not everybody has the same type of opportunities and situations. So what may sound great, oh my gosh, yes, I can do this. Another, it'd be like fat chance. So where am I going to throw the wrench? In this one here. So Teacher Melanie, you had said that for yourself and your husband, you created a game plan that you worked towards. That was amazing to pay off your student debt collectively, because you had that important conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know a lot of husbands, i.e. mine, I love you. I really do. I love you. But if I to sit down and come up with a game plan, he'd be like, sure. You know what sure means? He didn't hear one darn thing. And it's not that he doesn't want to do it. Or he will do the game, like he'll say, okay, no problem. But it's like it's not really as okay, tag in, tag out. Because I know there's a lot of people that are in relationships where it's still the other person doesn't have that money sense. Not that they don't have the money sense. They still have that mindset, I should say, rather. Why are we discussing it? It's getting done anyways. Because that's my husband. So he's the way how he sees it is, but it's going to be done. It's fine. Why do we have to talk about it? What do you do in situations? Because I know I've had it when I was in the financial advising where you've had couples. It's not it's not a but it's nowhere near WWE tag team. Let's go hit sledgehammer, tag team type of people. Yes, I watched WWE, the cartoon in the 1980s.
Can I just say, Camille, I don't think there is any, I'm just going to say, I don't think there's any situation where it's WWE tag team. I don't even know what WWE is, but like some kind of relay race, like tag team. Right?
You don't know what WWE is?
Oh, like wrestling.
Yeah, the wrestling. Yeah.
Wrestling. Oh my God.
Mary just rolled her eyes. Like, what do you mean, Crystal? Okay, so I don't think anything is tag team in money. I think they're like, you have to go through some rough patches and difficult conversations. And I won't speak for you, Teacher Melanie, but I'm assuming when you went through that decision to pay this off together, I'm sure there was some difficult, uncomfortable conversations before the tag team let's go.
Oh God, it was definitely some difficult and uncomfortable conversation. But I think one of the things too that is important when I do come across that, I always share my experience and my story, and I always say with the couple is just like, is it just going to be you, or are you in this together, right? And some way, somehow, try to get the other one involved, because a lot of times, if that person who is not involved and they go and tell their spouse, hey, I did this, whatever the case may be, there's going to be some resentment. But if it's coming from somebody else, right? Somebody who's, not a part of it, but just really an outsider, then it comes across better. So a lot of times what I try to do is will your spouse be there, or will your partner be there? So we all can be on the same page. Now, sometimes it don't always happen that way. They're just like, no, they're not going to they're just not. So I said, well, I'm going to work with you, but I need for you to share the information, but not share it as you're attacking, right? You're just sharing the information because you want them to be a part of it, right? And it's going to take some lives. Sometimes it takes a good while. Sometimes it will happen, right? I've had where it happened quickly, and I've had some even all now they still don't want to participate, right? But I said you have to make sure that you are showing up in a way that's just for the betterment of the family, and you're not being judgmental. You're not trying to attack. See, I'm trying to do all this, and see, you don't care, whatever the case. Because now all you've done now is just continue to put another wedge in this situation. Instead of I'm just letting you know. Here's the information. Whenever you're ready, it's right here. And by the way, if you want to also talk, I'm having a meeting this time if you're able to join, so they can still feel as though they're involved, even though they don't want to be involved initially, right? But those little things does help, because oh my gosh, sometimes I'm just like, no, they don't want to come in. It's like, nope.
And then date stamp everything. So when he goes back to you like a year later and says, what, we spent money, and you're like, proof, I got receipts, I date stamped it. I told you about it.
There you go.
Remember when we said this isn't
Thank God for smartphone cameras. I got you on tape, honey.
Yeah, but it's a
That's great.
journey.
No, that's a great conversation because again, there's so I when I was a financial advisor, I saw those
Right.
on all different levels. I've seen the ones where Mary's husband who is just sure, it's okay, no problem. And I've had ones where it's my husband. He says sure, it does. You know what? I have to give him this. It always does get done, but he starts with a plan and he scribbles. He doesn't know about this, and in between the scribbles, he gets confused. So then it's all I still feel I don't even know how to explain it. But then I also know there's men who are exactly what you said, Teacher Melanie, that are just not at the table. Or it's great that you have different scenarios because we do go through those, and those are a lot again. Us women, why we may not even want to even bring it up because we're already tired with the kids. We've already tried ourselves with our husbands, and we've already put that limiting belief in our head. Well, he's not
Right.
going to come anyways. So I'm not even going to think about my finance. I'm just going to let it be like this because I can't be bothered. Because I find a lot of women do that too. That's how they're received at home, right? And it's not. And I know some people are like, well, then why are you with this person? Why? That's usually the times when these happen is when you've already been seasoned in a relationship. It's not a make or break, but this is where you start to see a little bit of a disconnect. But we can, with great conversations and money sense, really collectively work as a team. But I do agree with you, Teacher Melanie. Sometimes you need that. Oh my gosh, WWE, the referee, who's that? Whatever the guy is, who's in the middle.
Yeah.
Exactly what you said. Sometimes it's like what I always say to some of my kids. It's like I'll say, "Go clean up your room," and then my mom will say, "Go clean up your room." Okay, mommy. I said, but I just said the same thing, but it sounded
Totally
different coming from
different.
my mom.
Totally different. And we're all that way. It doesn't matter what. Think about how many times we've said something and your spouse says, "Hey, do you know?" You don't. You don't say.
Yeah.
Same thing with our children. We can say the same thing to them, and somebody will say, "Do you know?" And it's like, oh, but you know what? Guess what I say? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. The point is they got it.
True. Great answer. That's so true. Instead of us focusing our mindset on, oh my gosh, they're not speaking the language or understanding it the same way that I want them or receiving it the same way I want it to be received at that time, doesn't mean that's like see. And if Chris heard that, he'd be like, you see, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
It still gets done. And you know what? You're right. We got to focus on the
Will
fact
still
that
get done
still gets
because
done.
God knows how to wait. This is what and it happens. God knows how to wait to send the right person, the right people to them. Where now they will come to you, and I've seen that. Where it's just like, do you know such and such, such and such, and you're like, no, okay, yes. Let me go ahead and look into that, knowing that you said it a gazillion times, but all of a sudden that light bulb, it just goes off. Now we're going in instead of be like, well, I've said that to you already. So why do you have to wait for somebody else to do it? It got done. Who cares how it ever got done, right? That seed that you wanted to be to sow, right? That money mindset thing you want them to get together. Now they're going to be more prone because first of all, it wasn't in a way that was defensive or if they felt attacked, they got information that now you need it. Now you can leverage that. Everybody wins. Everybody wins.
You know what? I love this conversation, ladies. I love when we talk about money mindset, how important it is, especially in entrepreneurship. Let's end this segment here today by dropping one takeaway or one tip or your best money management, money mindset, whatever it is to do with what's holding women back from making more money. Let's drop one tip each before we close off this live. Mary Massey, I want to start with you. What was your, what's the one tip? If you can leave everybody here watching the replay, what's your one money tip?
I would say be honest with yourself. And when you're budgeting, just be very honest with yourself. Don't be afraid to just feel a little crappy sometimes when you budget. So it's going to be okay.
I'm going to roll off of that. So female entrepreneurs who are listening in, be honest with yourself when it comes to the money in your business. Know your cash flow. Be honest with what's coming in, what's coming out. Make informed decisions because you know what's coming in. And my final tip to that is do not rely on your accountant, your bookkeeper, your husband, your bank to know what cash flow and what your money situation is in your business. Because if you do, you will be held back from making more money that you could in your business.
That part. Yeah. And then for myself, I will say, please, to put value towards the money that you're creating, that you're building for yourself. And that value, make it exclusive to you first, instead of just always putting it towards other things in yourself. Because when you put value to especially yourself, which is your number one love, you're going to feed into it more. That's how I put my mindset is that this is a value to me, and it allows me to do other things, but I put that value towards myself first.
That's good. That's good. Mine is that once you understand that money is a tool, educate yourself on how to utilize that tool. Because once you know better, you'll do better. It will now help you to be in control, because we like being in control as women. This is a way that now you have the ability to be in control, because now you understand the money game, right? You understand that it is a game. But now, when you educate yourself, guess what's going to happen? You're going to win the game, because you didn't allow somebody or something to tell you. You did it. You learned it. You've experienced. Now you're in control. You're in control. You're going to win, and you win big.
I love it. What an awesome conversation, ladies. I wish we would have dropped those tips right in the beginning. That's how we're going to start next time. Like, drop those tips right in the beginning, because we dropped so much throughout this whole conversation. Amazing, incredible, as always, here every Thursday, Women Let's Talk About It Corner, real raw conversations with female entrepreneurs who are keeping it like down to earth. No holding back. Ask us anything, any questions you have. If you have any suggestions on what you would like to hear us talk about next, definitely drop that in the comments. Send us a DM. Otherwise, keep your money right. Keep it tight. Keep your mindset right. I don't know if any of that made sense. And tap in with us. Tap in with the Mom Link. Don't do any of this stuff alone. Entrepreneurship is lonely. Join incredible women like Camille Jones, Mary Massey, Mellonie Warren. Join us in the Mom Link. Just get in the community already. And if not, catch us back here next Thursday. All right, ladies, have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.